Welcome back to the Life Has Purpose podcast. This is Bethany.
And Ryan Bomberger. It's so good to be back. We've been gone for a minute.
We have. It's really difficult. We had a number of speaking engagements, and we were able to travel. Took the kids with us to some of those things. So
Pandemic didn't shut everything down. So.
No, it didn't, but it definitely made it a little more difficult.
More challenging
to travel. Yes.
But we like a challenge.
Oh, do we? I think I need a vacation, a challenge-less vacation. But we definitely missed all of our podcast friends, and maybe we have to figure out how to take the podcast on the road so that when we're traveling, we could figure out a way to still keep it going and
get the kids to work. That's what we need to do.
Seriously,
I'm just saying.
Teach them to edit, please.
It will happen.
Mm-hmm.
They can figure out every device and app. Come on, they can figure out. Actually, they're on their way. They're awesome kiddos. So, in the midst of all this chaos,
yes,
truth is still breaking through.
Come on,
and it's an awesome opportunity for, especially as Christians, to be able to point people to the truth that is constant. We can have all these crazy, subjective, cultural trends that literally are exploding all over the place, but there is one thing that is forever constant, no matter the century, no matter the cultural trend, no matter the wish for, deconstruction. What needs to be deconstructed are all these lies.
Yes. It has been phenomenal to find so many like-minded people as we've been traveling. And I know that sometimes we've just, we feel like, hey, we're in the minority here. Is anybody else reading their Bible and actually using it as a standard by which they're weighing on what's going on in the world? And actually the answer is yes.
Yes.
It might not be the loudest voices we're hearing, and we're certainly not hearing that come out from the media, but there is a remnant across the globe that is sticking true to what it means to be God-fearing, God-loving, believing for unity, believing for peace, and believing for reconciliation the way God's heart would want it to be.
Absolutely. And we have to remember, the media amplifies the things that are actually much smaller. Mm-hmm. This is what they do, and they make it look gigantic. I mean, they blow things up so out of proportion, but this is what they do. This is how lies work. Lies are just puffed up things.
Yes.
And so we just need to stick a needle on it. That's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing today, because we're talking about the war on kids.
Yeah, this is really something that I'm super passionate about and really close to both of our hearts, because as all of you know, I have been a teacher, and so my undergraduate degree, my graduate degree, it's all about education and then teaching, and I've spent many, many years with kiddos. And so I'm just passionate about talking about letting them come out and be empowered as leaders.
Right. And of course, being empowered means they're actually being taught the truth, because we hear the adage, I guess, all the time that knowledge is power, but that's not true. Truth is true power. Mm-hmm. Lots of people can be misinformed. I mean, I guess you could say misinformation is power, and we're seeing that in our culture. And the target of that misinformation is often kids.
Right. Innocent children.
You have people all over the place who understand the power that our public schools have, the power that our entertainment industry has, the news media have. Planned Parenthood, for instance, they give advice on how do I talk with my preschooler about the body, right? About their body. And so this is Planned Parenthood. Remember, $2 billion abortion industry, and they get $500 million every year from taxpayers. And so they're asking who has what, and it's a note about gender, and they conclude here, your genitals don't make you a boy or a girl. This is what they're encouraging people to tell a little preschooler. This is what's happening all over the place. The deception, the misinformation, and if we can't even get the most basic thing right.
Right.
I mean, if there are no longer boys and girls and there are 58 genders, then everything has to be confused.
Right.
And how does a young child process it? That's why we have Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Boy Scouts are like, well, we'll take in girls, and Girl Scouts are like, we'll take in boys who think that they're girls. And of course, Boy Scouts are now bankrupt. They announced bankruptcy back in February.
They?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a Boy Scout.
Were you?
Yeah, I was a Cub Scout. I didn't go all the way. I didn't go to Eagle Scout or anything like that. But
wait. I was a missionette. Whoop, whoop.
That was like,
'Cause we are a mission that's for Jesus. We want to live for him each day.
that was definitely not a Girl Scout anthem. And it's a shame because Girl Scouts, I mean, they have gone so far off. That's why you would have missionettes. That's why you have like American Heritage Girls today.
Right.
Thankfully, you have alternatives to what's going on. Girl Scouts are radically pro-abortion.
Which is
They're
so
radically,
sad.
People don't realize actually what is going on with groups like Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts, we've done numerous articles on the Girl Scouts with their cookie, the cookie sales and where that money goes.
Right.
But Girl Scouts USA is part of the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. And that organization is fighting at the UN level to legalize prostitution, to decriminalize abortion around the world. And every Girl Scout immediately becomes part of WAGS. That's the acronym for the group.
Right.
So what is it about, these groups that are doing what little girls really should have no role in playing,
Right.
in involvement in whatsoever?
It's so sad because it also just muddies up the waters of all the good that they do or that they could do. They teach the kids so many different things. They just all the classes and the badges that they receive,
Right.
and they learn so many things. It's like, why? Why do you then throw in there, hey, and by the way, we're going to fight for prostitution to be legalized?
I mean,
What?
this
What
is so
is
crazy.
that?
And these are young girls. The Worldwide Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts is, it's a multi-million-dollar organization. It's a lobbying organization. So in one of those efforts, it was the Bali Global Youth Forum Declaration. In that forum, they're trying to legalize prostitution, decriminalize abortion. This is not, when you think Girl Scouts and my girls going out there to learn these songs and learn how to be a good citizen and to learn how to serve and care for others and to learn about, amazing women, except unfortunately, all those supposed amazing women are all radically pro-abortion, pro-LGBT. You won't find conservative women in the books
Right.
that they're learning about. So there's just such a war on our boys and our girls.
Right. And it's coming from every side. Babe, let's talk about just the entertainment industry.
Oh my gosh.
Right? How do we even turn on a television? Honestly, the ads, the shows themselves, even on the children's networks.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're not even talking about over sexualizing things. We're just talking about sexualizing things
In the first place.
Right. I mean, the over happens too, but it's incredible. And no matter how much we attempt to restrict devices and restrict things, up pops a menu for even music.
Yeah, like iTunes. I mean, the pornographic images.
Right.
And so many kids have full access to that. So it's, they're peddling pornography. They're peddling, content that obviously is a worldview that is hostile to Christianity. It's hostile to common sense.
I was really encouraged, though, the other day when I was doing devotions. The Lord really led me to the verse about how we're strangers in this land.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, what feels like sometimes, oh, you guys just gripe and complain about everything. No, we actually don't belong to this culture. We've chosen to be set apart. And so there's going to be odds that we feel those being at odds in our spirit. And we're wrestling with it because our hearts aren't settled because we're not supposed to be settled with what the enemy has for our children.
Right.
It's if as long as we are settled with our children being over sexualized and experiencing things that are far beyond what's appropriate, then there's a problem.
Yeah, and we're called to be salt and light. There's a reason for that. And when we pull out salt from things, what happens? It loses its flavor. And what ends up happening is when Christians withdraw from all these different spheres of influence,
Right.
the flavor of Christ is not in there. And that's why you have, networks like Netflix that is hardcore pushing not just, sexuality, reckless sexuality, and that's whether it's heterosexuality or homosexuality, but drugs and just obscene violence. I mean, this is their normal fare. And of course, with children now in their children's program, they're pushing transgenderism and all that confusion. And then you have Disney as well. I mean, Disney, which people think is, this pinnacle of children's entertainment, that is now pushing an ideology. And it's not just these entertainment industries, it's corporate America. They are pushing a worldview that in so many ways is at odds with our faith. And so we're not of this world, but we're still in this world, and we are here to be the light of Christ. And so how does that play out in our everyday lives?
And the thing about salt, it not only gives flavor, but it's a preservative. And so when Christians no longer made a push to take over media or to own airwaves, we no longer preserved what was good and what was right. We actually gave it over. And whereas, growing up, there was a big encouragement to go to a Christian college, et cetera, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but there wasn't ever, the mindset was, as a Christian, you do Christian things and you're in ministry. And so what has happened is we've pulled out of these other areas and we've given them over.
Right. And now we're pulling out of the church. The church is actually acquiescing and capitulating to the culture.
Right.
So if we sound like the culture and we look like the culture,
something's not right.
Then we're not.
What are we preserving?
Being the church. I know.
We're not being the preservative that we were called to be.
Yeah.
Life has purpose.
Listen, download, and subscribe to the Life Has Purpose podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or SoundCloud.
Life is beautiful. For example, us and you. Hi, my name is Aaliyah, and I'm pro-life because life matters. Hi, I'm Lily, and I'm pro-life because mom and babies matter. ProLifeKids.com.
Oh, no extra little whatever?
Oh, yeah.
The Radiance Foundation illuminates that every human life has purpose. We educate hundreds of thousands about crucial social issues, and we motivate people to positive action.
Truth won't take a vacation. That's why we need your generous donation. Tax deductible, stuff is acceptable. Your gifts make illumination possible. Truth won't take a vacation. And here's our little explanation. Defending human dignity never ends. That's why we depend on you, my friend. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
I like it. You better shine, people.
Go to radiance.life/donate to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you for supporting our life-affirming work.
I feel like we're in a season in life where we're legitimately at war all day, every day. That's how it feels over here at the Radiance Foundation. I feel like as we're responding to the culture, we're feeling this intense warfare. And there are many days where we just feel like, can we just pack it in and move somewhere far away where we don't have to deal with this? And the answer is actually no. Sometimes the Lord's like, hey, I'm releasing you from certain things. But sometimes he's like, no, I've put you there to stand and fight.
Right.
And so we want to be a voice that fights for our children.
100%.
Fights for their innocence to be held onto, and fights for them to be poured into in such a way that they are mighty leaders who are going to achieve great things, that they are not only going to be empowered themselves, but they're going to have the tools to empower others. And that's not going to come through some of the channels that before we might have thought they would have come through.
And you're right, it is so heavy. But the thing about dealing with and living in a broken culture is that it also gives us an awesome opportunity to love people, to truly love people. Loving people is not just speaking the truth, it's living the truth. And so many kids are being told, in this culture of confusion that, love is love and tolerance is the virtue. But they really don't know what love really is. They really don't know what tolerance truly is.
We've created the meme that says love lifts people out of their circumstances. Tolerance keeps people where they are and pretends there are no circumstances.
That is 100% true.
Yes.
And you look at the things that get embraced today, so many people don't ever want to talk about the origin of things. And so what they do is they just celebrate, hey, you're this, and, sparkle and glitter, and we're going to celebrate this, and we're going to, brokenness has roots. It's this stuff is deep. And I'm talking about brokenness for anything. I'm talking about whatever leads to drug addiction. I'm talking about whatever leads to abortion. I'm talking about whatever leads to homelessness and runaways. The list goes on and on. But yet our children are fed this lie that somehow, hey, there's no real truth. It's just whatever you feel. That's it.
Exactly. And it just allows anybody to say, hey, this is what I think is truth. And so I'm just going to pour truth on you, my truth, which is actually not the truth, which makes me think of Amelia Bono.
Oh, yeah.
The creator of the Shout Your Abortion campaign. But what was incredibly disturbing to me is this series of viral videos that she's done where she's sitting there in a folding chair and she brings in kids of different ages and they're sitting there next to her. It's just very simple, very minimalistic. And she just begins to talk about abortion, and her heart is really to normalize abortion and to allow these children to ask any questions that they want.
Well, sort of. It's so highly edited. The video is
it?
so in. I mean, as an editor,
Yeah.
I don't think she actually says one. Maybe she says one full sentence, but it's so choppy, and yet you see that these kids who are obviously being exploited. She's
I think
flanked
so, for
by
sure.
young children, and she's trying to. It's almost like she's trying to convince herself that what she did, the abortion that she had, she's trying to convince herself that it was the right decision
Right.
in front of children.
Right. And then they're asking questions, and then she's explaining that she's actually pro-life.
So what do you know or what have you heard about abortion?
I don't exactly know what happens, but like you go and basically get rid of the baby from inside you.
What have you heard?
That.
Why did you have an abortion?
A few years ago I got pregnant and I really didn't want to have a baby.
When you have an abortion, what exactly do you do to like have the abortion?
You go to the doctor and they put this little straw inside of your cervix and then inside of your uterus, and then they just suck the pregnancy out. And it was like a crappy dentist appointment or something. It was just like, this is like a body thing that's kind of uncomfortable. But then it was over and I felt really just grateful that I wasn't pregnant anymore.
Have you told a lot of people or just your close family?
I told my Lyft driver on my way here. I've told so many people about my abortion. So I decided to tell everyone on Facebook that I had had an abortion and that I was choosing to tell people that because I felt like the pro-choice movement was really silent.
Have you ever been like attacked online by pro-life people?
Yes, but I don't call them pro-life. I call them anti-choice because who would disagree with that statement, right? Like being pro-life. I'm just like, that's not, you guys aren't pro-life. I'm pro-life. Do we want people to just have all those babies?
No.
So what do we do with them?
Put them up for adoption.
I feel like if I am forced to create life, I have lost the right to my own life. I should be the one to decide if my body creates a life. Even if you're giving a kid up for adoption, you still like have a kid out there somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
Are you religious at all?
I believe in God.
What do you think that God thinks about abortion?
If I were to say, I think like he's fine with it because there are still babies being born. What do you think God thinks about abortion?
I think it's all part of God's plan.
Right, because selfishness is at the center of every single thing she says to any of these kids. Well, it wasn't the right time for me to have a baby. I didn't really want to have a baby. My partner didn't want to have a baby. You've got to convince kids that this makes sense.
Right.
Because in their gut, they're like, yeah, this doesn't make sense.
This is wrong.
And so the heart is to normalize abortion and to influence children at very young ages. And we're talking about the war on children because this is a war. And a lot of people don't want to believe that their children are being influenced. And we think to ourselves, oh, we're sheltering our kids from certain things. And while that's wonderful and true in a lot of ways, there is so much misinformation out there, and there is an agenda to get to our children and to normalize things that are not godly, not healthy, and won't encourage our children to be good citizens, period.
Right. I mean, this is the same woman too, who, obviously launched this whole shout your abortion, and Twitter went mad with it, and she has a book out, but now she wants to put out a children's book. Mm-hmm. The world is just literally dying to reach our children.
Yes.
They are dying because that's what they bring. They bring a message of death, and they themselves, sin is death. And no matter what form it takes, but it is death. And they are trying so desperately to put this death in our children.
Right. And I believe, and we've said this for years, I believe that children can stand up for what is right and can stand up for what is good from very young ages. And I've felt very strongly in the last weeks and months that whole statement and that whole line of thinking is really being challenged, because we've said this for all these years. But guess what? Now we're seeing it. Our kids don't have another 20 years to figure out who God is.
Right.
They don't have another 25, 30 years to figure out what's right and what's good. They're in the midst of a culture that's exponentially moving away from God. And if they don't know, they're going to be lost way before 30 years. We don't have the luxury of time. There is an urgency. And so I only say this not to instill more fear, but just to encourage Christian parents to speak to their children, to build them up in things of God, and to pour into their character and character development. And of course, this doesn't mean perfection, but this means as parents, as neighbors, as aunts, as uncles, however it plays out in your sphere of influence, that you have an ability to influence children. Now's the time to pour into them, because they're never too young to build character, and they're never too young to know what is right.
Life has purpose.
Anyone can be an activist, but you have to speak the truth to be a factivist.
When a woman gets pregnant, that is not a human being inside of her.
Now that's a pro-abortion activist.
We know it's a living human being that's inside of her.
And that's a pro-life factivist. BeAFactivist.com.
Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I'm pro-life because every kid should have a chance to live in the world and have fun and do amazing things. ProLifeKids.com.
As parents of 4 kiddos, we homeschool our kiddos, but babe, you were a teacher in both public and private school.
Yes.
But it's public schools that's the center of this kind of indoctrination. Mm-hmm. And there are ways that we can be involved. Understand what's going on at your local level, in your local school. It's why we have this sheet that says the top 10 reasons to keep Planned Parenthood out of your local school. Many parents don't realize how intricately involved Planned Parenthood is in public schools across the country. And more than that, the top 10 reasons to keep Planned Parenthood out of your school, you can go to radiance.life/protect our kids, and you can see that article and all the disturbing information there. But there's so much content that school boards are passing. They're passing them off as diversity books, which I find it funny, because in a lot of these meetings, the school board members themselves can't even read the content that they've approved
it's so
for elementary
vile and
age.
perverse.
Right. All of it. All of it.
Right.
And some of those books, these are very common books that are showing up in our public schools for young kids at elementary age. It's Not the Stork, which is supposedly meant for kids 4 and up, which talk very explicitly about sex.
Yeah, we can't even read a clip on this. I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Not going to do it. It's So Amazing, which is another book for kids 7 and up, which has plenty of images that are very explicit, and it pushes homosexuality. And then you've got, It's Perfectly Normal, which is, they claim it's for ages 10 and up. It promotes abortion, homosexual behavior, and masturbation, and multiple sexual partners, because you know how healthy that is.
Right. Come on,
And this is
people.
what's, and of course in the foreword of that book, who's part of the foreword? Cecile Richards, the former president of Planned Parenthood. Of course, she was the president of Planned Parenthood when she gave the foreword to that book. But these are just a small sampling of the books that get put in front of first graders, second graders, third graders.
And if I could just add to that, I've taught in different settings: public schools, private schools, suburban, urban. You know, I've kind of run the gamut, because before I got married, I had freedom to move into different areas and teach in different school settings. And I for a number of years had to legally be the teacher in the classroom when Planned Parenthood would come in. My kids, my students, my 7th and 8th grade kiddos would call it Sex Tuesday when they came in, because they knew that if they brought up anything, it was free game for discussion.
Right. And can I just interrupt for just a second?
Of course.
These were not medical professionals who were coming in from Planned Parenthood.
No.
They were just activists.
Right.
These were not medically trained individuals who were coming to misinform your precious kiddos in your class.
Right. They absolutely. And I remember, being like, why do I have to be in this classroom right now? Because you're going to play sex bingo, talk about some of the most perverse things. I used to joke about, like, this isn't a class on like educating on health. This is a how-to. Because these kids could literally ask whatever they want, and it was a free for all. And I'd be like, oh, okay, thanks for coming in for 45 minutes. Now can we go back to teaching math? And it's kind of like, oh, okay, we just finished literally sex bingo. Can you put the sex bingo away and pull out your math book? But I say all that to say that here we are at this juncture in our life and doing what we're doing and spending our time talking to our Life Has Purpose podcast people. And I'm telling you that we're not making up what's going on in these schools. This is what's happening.
It's happening all across the country. There are school districts that have no regard for what parental wishes are for their children.
Right.
And in fact, there's so much going on to actually kick parents out of the picture. This is what happens with liberalism, because liberalism doesn't believe that you as a parent are the one who should be instilling your values into your children. In fact, they're constantly pitting us as the parents as the enemy of the child, and as the enemy of education. Look, we are all about education.
Oh, yes.
We're all about accurate information. And you know what? We're also all about accountability.
Right.
As taxpayers, the school is accountable to parents. And that's why we cannot allow our voice to be silenced. And this is not just about, the sex miseducation that's going on. It's also the race miseducation that's going on. Because now you've got, these initiatives that are going into schools in the Black Lives Matter movement, and all the same ideology that pits us against each other, white against black. And it's just, there's so much going on that as parents, I know it feels overwhelming. And this is what the enemy tries to convince us of. You're outnumbered. You're outspent. You can't do this. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Come on, people. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
And we can't give up because it's hard.
No.
We can do, I've been saying this for like a year. I know other people say it too, but we can do hard things, people.
Every day.
We have to press through. We have to move through our fear of having to tackle these very difficult things. And we have to find the tools and get equipped to be able to tackle them and tackle them down to the ground. And that's why you're listening to the Life Has Purpose podcast, because you're educating yourselves and you are creating places in your heart and in your mind to grow and to mature and to learn things you might not have known before.
Right.
So that you can actually have those tools. Matthew 18:6 says, "But if you cause one of these little ones who trusts in me to fall into sin, it would be better for you to have a large millstone tied around your neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea." And the truth is that we don't have the luxury of being lazy about influencing our children, because that's a really, really heavy verse right there.
Right.
We're gonna be held responsible for how we chose to educate the kids in our spheres of influence.
I don't know if you've ever worn a millstone around your neck.
Not planning on it.
Because first of all, it'll probably break your neck. But the whole point of that, this is so heavy. And I like this, people say, well, this is figurative. This is serious. This is how much God loves children and loves the innocence of children. And Jesus, let the children come unto me. And this is a serious thing. We are their protectors. God sent us here as parents to protect our children, but not just our children, because we don't just look out for our own children. We care deeply about other children.
Right.
And we care deeply when they are being polluted. I think of James, in the book of James, where it talks about pure religion. Pure religion is this, taking care of the widows and the orphans. And people often get to the other part of it, and not to allow yourself to be polluted by the world.
Wow.
We are allowing so much pollution in the heart and the minds of our children. People talk about, climate change and about the environment. What about the spiritual environment of our children? What about the emotional environment of our children? What about the mental environment? And we have corporations who are pouring sludge, pouring all kinds of toxicity into our children. And as Christian parents, we have to say, enough is enough. When we come back, we're going to talk about what we're doing to try to counter this culture.
Yes.
And, it's one of my favorite authors. She goes by the name of Bethany Bomberger. So when we come back, we're going to talk about her exciting, groundbreaking book. Stay tuned. Life Has Purpose with Ryan and
Bethany Bomberger.
Life has purpose.
Listen, download, and subscribe at lifehasPurpose.com or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or SoundCloud.
Hi, I'm Austin. I'm against abortion because God created them and they weren't supposed to be killed in the womb.
Hi, I'm Kai, and I'm pro-life because if my dad's birth mom hadn't chosen life, I wouldn't be here.
See ya.
Okay. Yeah.
ProLifeKids.com.
All right, we are back.
Yay.
This is Life Has Purpose, and
Yes.
we love creating at the Radiance Foundation tools for helping Christians especially be equipped to talk about tough issues.
Right.
And what issue is tougher than the issue of abortion, understanding what it means to be pro-life? So I had my favorite author with me in the house, literally in the house. She is a children's author of a groundbreaking book. There's nothing out there like this. It's called Pro-Life Kids.
Yes.
I love it. I'm looking at the cover right now, and first of all, the illustrator is Ed Kaler, who is phenomenal.
Shout out to Ed.
But this book is changing things. So why don't we just kind of go back, because we love origin stories, right? We love talking about the roots of things. What moved you? What inspired you to even write this book, babe?
Well, we always talk about the fact that we have to live it to give it. When you hear us speak about things wherever we are, there's really, it comes from a place of wanting to see the reality of what we're speaking about happening within the four walls of our home. And as educators, as parents, we want our children who are naturally pro-life.
Right.
Children are naturally pro-life. It is actually their natural inclination to be pro-life. You have to teach a child that to dismember another human being is an act of reproductive justice. That is something you have to convince them of.
Right.
That's not something that comes naturally. It's not a truth that's even in their heart. So we, of course, age appropriately have always talked about this issue within our house. And, one day I was up and I was doing my devotions, and as I was thinking through how I was going to share certain things with the kiddos, the Lord just gave me this text in the form of poetry. And at our family meeting, I decided, let me just read this poem out loud. And we realized that once I was reading it that, hey, maybe this would be a way to help other parents talk about a very difficult subject age appropriately.
Right. And of course, everything that we're talking about here in this segment, you can find out about the book and more about the things and some of the tools that we've also created along with it at prolifekids.com.
Yes.
But it went from this poetry, and I heard it, and I thought, that, oh my word, we need to do something with this. That is beautiful, babe. And so that morphed into
creating the book. And it's my heart that it's not just a book, it's a movement. And that what happens, maybe using this book as a catalyst for really awakening the hearts of a good portion of the pro-life movement that have been silent and kind of been overlooked, the kids. You know, before I wrote this, I kind of wrote this around February of last year. In January, I decided to have a pro-life kids. Well, you know this. You were here with me. We had a pro-life kids class in our house. We had about 20 kids here, all different ages, from 5 all the way up to 16. And we talked about different elements of personhood and what it meant to appreciate people because of their size, because of where they lived. And then we began to talk about what happens when one human being decides another human being is not human enough. And after we had this class, age appropriately, I just let the kids go out and play and run around. And there was a handful of kiddos that were kind of just sitting there understanding how sobering abortion is.
Right.
And we sat there and I said, well, why don't we take some time to really take this to the Lord and pray? And when I heard them pray for the end of abortion in their lifetime, I thought we have to, we can't wait any longer. It's time to mobilize youth, because when they understand the injustice of abortion, they're moved to do things. And I know that our conversations with adults and our conversations on college campuses would be radically different.
Completely, yeah.
If we were intentional about helping our children to articulate, helping our children to understand and articulate a pro-life worldview from a very young age.
You know what? I want to play a clip, actually, of a friend of ours, Tony McFadden.
Oh, yes.
And her son. And she just captured this. This was his natural response to reading the book for the first time. Just listen to this clip and you can understand when you say, babe, that kids are naturally pro-life. Just hear his reaction when reading this.
Many believed a lie. You're not a person. No way, they cried. You're not a person. Today, many think that lie is still true, that babies in wombs aren't people too. Abortion is when some say it's okay to take that baby's precious life away. It's not okay for that.
No, it's not. You're right.
This is exactly why we need a book like this, Pro-Life Kids by Bethany Bomberger. It is so, okay, let's talk about just the look of this book, because it's groundbreaking for a lot of different reasons. And I'm not just saying this. I mean, we have endorsements from Jeannie Mancini, the president of March for Life Education and Defense Fund,
Jeannie.
Dr. Alveda King, longtime friend, and we got Abby Johnson endorsing it, the Benham brothers, Terry Musin from co-host from 700 Club, and numerous others who have just praised this book because there really is nothing out there like this. And when you open this book, and I love this. I love one of our friends, Caitlin Ritchie, who as a little boy,
Caitlin.
yeah, hey Caitlin, hey
Little
Jamie,
Joey.
we love you guys. And little Joey, he is a pro-life kid,
Right.
and she just talks about how she would just read this to him over and over, and to the point where he would just bring it to her. He would love to hear this, and he's got it down. His cute little, what is he?
His little peanut voice.
Is he 4 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He is.
4 years old. But you open this book up, and it is, and even from the cover, you can see that it's just beautiful. It's beautifully diverse.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so for many years as an educator, I've learned to love children's literature. I think it is an awesome tool to talk about many different things and to really reach children on a lot of different levels. Talk about emotions, talk about situations. There's so many different ways. And that there's just so many different ways that literature really speaks to children and is really allows them to go places that other things wouldn't. But it's not just the text that is important. It is the imagery. And that's why I'm so grateful that God brought us Ed Kaler, because what my heart is that as children would open the pages of this book, and since it's not a character-focused book, it's a concept-focused, I wanted the kiddos to see a reflection of themselves in one of the kids on one of these pages. And so it was important to me that not only were the illustrations speaking loudly, but that even as they opened up the book, the end pages would have images of characters that they could pore over and find reflections of themselves in.
Now, I'm from a diverse family, white and black, Native American, Vietnamese. I love diversity, and I think sometimes diversity gets elevated too much, but there is something so powerful about identity where kids can look through this and see this adorable little ballerina with her beautiful cocoa skin and her curly hair and this little adorable little kid who's into martial arts with her blonde hair, and girls and boys and those with abilities and differing abilities. It's just one with Down syndrome who's got the t-shirt on that says downright loved. I mean, come on, this is our heart.
Well, this is what it means to be pro-life. Pro-life means for life. We're cheering for you. Right? This is what it's all about. To crack open a book and feel celebrated, that is the heart of what it means to be pro-life. Pro-lifers are the ones that celebrate life at every age and every stage.
Right.
And so the feelings that you get when you open this book, and I just love hearing it from you because I feel like you've even looked at the book so many times. So if you still feel
just a few,
if you still feel that sense of excitement opening up the book, that makes my heart happy. But that is what it means to have a pro-life worldview. We are pro-lifers are the ones that celebrate. We say, hey, it doesn't matter your nationality. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter your personality. We just love that you're alive and the world is a better place because you're in it.
Exactly.
And really, people get really concerned about talking about abortion because, wait, do we have to be really graphic about it? No. We can handle this issue age appropriately by first laying a foundation where people understand that they are loved just because of who they are, and that the things that make them unique and the things that might make them quirky are the things that we love about them.
Right. And we have to understand, too, that people think that this is such a heavy topic, but you have to understand the rest of the world is approaching young children as young as kindergarten with books about all kinds of issues, the Holocaust and about slavery. I mean, that's what the Who What series, that they cover every issue under the sun. And these are meant for elementary age children. I mean, as a teacher, you know that this is what's normally taught, all these heavy issues. But the real issue for us is how do you present it? Because the world is always going to present it, for the most part, recklessly. And as Christians, we understand, one, there's a foundation of truth. We understand the value of every human life being equal and irrevocable. So we approach things, especially in the issue of abortion, very differently. But for parents who feel like, well, I don't know if I can broach this subject with my child, guess what? The world is. And so while the world's shouting the lie, too many Christian parents are just zipping their lips and not talking about it. We cannot allow the world to shout the lie. We have to be able to shout the truth in love even louder.
We have to teach our kids before a broken world reaches them.
Yes.
We have to. And I think that, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think our conversations would be different. You know, I specifically remember a conversation with somebody I had at a college campus who was saying to me, my parents were pro-life, but I know better.
Right.
And if understanding the value of being pro-life isn't something that becomes like knit into part of who you are,
right,
when you're hit with all these other things that especially on college campuses, that these kiddos are hit with, then you're going to sway from that, and you're going to find yourself believing that taking another human's life is okay.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want that to happen on my watch.
And prepare them. It doesn't have to be a scary thing, in the sense that, you want your child to be able to respond in a way that is truth-filled, that is loving, but that is uncompromising. And that's why, I love in the book here where we actually tie the civil rights movement to the right to life movement. Because you're talking about a period in time when people with my complexion weren't considered persons because what? Because of our brown skin? How crazy is that?
Right. Well, you look back at slavery, you look at the Holocaust, and like I said earlier, because this is how I describe it to my children, anytime one group of humans decides that another group of humans is not worthy of their humanity or not humans, it never turns out well.
Ever.
And really, that's what abortion is doing. Abortion says, hey, this group of humans doesn't have, we don't consider them fully human.
Right.
And so we can take their life without consequence. And I say, no. We've seen how this has worked out in history, and it never comes out well.
No. And as we're looking at 62 million, who have perished because people have pushed the lie that some humans are not persons. First of all, every human is a person, and every person is a human, period. And every human life begins at fertilization.
Yeah.
And for those who think, well, that's just a religious belief, nope, it's scientific. In fact, I love the recent study that and in fact, we'll link this in the show block at lifehaspurpose.com, but a consensus of biologists, it's the only study of its kind that I've ever even seen. 95% of all biologists agree that human life begins at fertilization. I don't know what's wrong with the other 5%. They're obviously ignoring the basics of biology. But the fact is, this is overwhelming. It's not a question as to when human life begins. And so, this is even touched on in here, but as Bethany was saying, it's all done in an age-appropriate way. It's done in a celebratory way as well, because this is not, although we're dealing with something so heavy, this is a book that you could just, it's like you can stand up and shout and cheer, because in the end, when you have a child whose pro-life worldview, that natural inclination is being reinforced, that's something to celebrate.
Right.
It really is. And so it's not just the incredible, the rhyme, which is what you're using throughout this. And, I love this. It says, well, could you read this page?
Which page do you want me to read?
I love this. You see visually starting off with the little baby and going through all the different stages of life, including pregnancy, and then having a couple with a baby, and then elderly people.
Right. It doesn't matter your size or your age. You have equal value, whatever the stage. And where you live won't determine your worth. You're a person. It's true, even before your birth. And now that comes after I've begun to lay out how unique every individual is, right? And how special they are, and how God knit them together one cell at a time. But that's how I really take them to a place of understanding how unique they are. And then we go into, sadly, there are those who don't understand that life has purpose, whether planned or unplanned. And throughout history, many believed a lie. You are not a person, no way, they cried. Today, many think that lie is still true, that babies in wombs aren't people too. Abortion is when some say it's okay to take that baby's precious life away. But your color, your gender, and nationality, your abilities, looks, and great personality, they make you, fully human indeed. No exceptions, no exclusions. That's the pro-life creed.
I love every word
going,
of it.
But
I'm partial. Yeah. I'm biased. I don't care. There's nothing wrong with bias as long as it's leading you to the truth. But, I am one of those exceptions. I was conceived in rape. Yeah. I was adopted and loved. And... Yes. Out of our 4 kiddos, 2 of our kiddos are adopted as well. And so this book celebrates adoption. It celebrates the fact that we value every human life. The circumstances of our conception do not change the condition of our worth. And I'm telling you, the response from parents has been phenomenal. And not only does it have the poetry throughout this, it's also a resource. It's a resource for people.
Yeah.
And so this is reaching out, not just people ask the age group. It's K through 5 primarily, but it can actually be even pre-K. I mean, even
Right.
2-year-olds, 2-year-olds, even up through middle school. I don't think a lot of people realize storybooks, picture books are actually a big thing in middle school.
Well, they definitely capture the kids' attention, and this book is really a jump off point. There's so much deeper that you could go into the issue if you wanted to. At the end, I put a letter from me and some resources, 10 ways that you can show that you're pro-life. We have a section, Meet Real Pro-Life Kids, so that you can actually see pictures and read little blurbs of what other children are doing. Because sometimes we feel like, okay, that means if I'm pro-life, that means I have to like do something huge and get on a big stage. No, you can be kind to somebody. You can wear a t-shirt with a pro-life message. There's a way to really make that come to life and be relatable and not out of touch.
So Pro-Life Kids, I mean, you can get the book at prolifekids.com. You can get it on Amazon. And more importantly, you can raise a pro-life kid in this crazy whacked out culture. But the beautiful thing is your child can be a leader, not when they're 20, 25. They can be a leader at the age of 5.
Life has purpose. You never know what the future might be. That's the beauty of possibility. Every human life so irreplaceable. I can't imagine life without you. It's just unthinkable. There's no one like you. No one like you. You're 1 in 7 billion. There's no one like you. No one like you. You're 1 in 7 billion. No one like you. No one like you. No.
Hi, I'm Justice. Hi, I'm Justice too. Hi, I'm Joseph. And I'm pro-life because every life has a reason. I'm pro-life because everybody is wonderfully made. I'm pro-life because God made us special. Woohoo! Yeah! Yeah!
That's what I'm talking about.
ProLifeKids.com!
This is why we're doing this podcast, Life Has Purpose, because, we want to speak truth to you. We want to equip and enable you to engage a broken culture that is so desperate for Jesus. They may pretend that they don't want Jesus. They may pretend that they hate anything about God, but they want what only God, what only Christ can bring. And this is what we're trying to bring through the tools, the persuasive tools that we're creating through the Radiance Foundation. It's really an honor to serve in this way. And we also want parents to understand, look, you are not alone. There are resources out there. Just a few. Okay. Actually, there's more than a few. In fact, we're gonna
We'll list them. We'll list them in the show.
Show block, yes,
Right.
at lifeispurpose.com.
Right.
Just go under this particular show block and you will see links to a lot of resources that are really going to be helpful for
Right.
parents regarding children, parents regarding apologetics,
Right.
parents regarding, alternatives to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, because we don't want to just criticize the things that we know are so wrong and so broken. We want to say, hey, there are alternatives.
Right, there are alternatives. I love World Kids, which is kids.wng.org. That's awesome. My kids still have listened for hours to Adventures in Odyssey Club, right?
Right.
oaclub.org. Culture of Life Studies is an awesome Catholic-based pro-life resource. GotQuestions.org is an awesome one.
That's apologetics. I mean, any question you have about faith, it's an excellent resource.
Right. As is AnswersInGenesis.org. Fantastic. Museumofthebible.org. JustTheFacts.org. We got a lot there for you.
On JustTheFacts.org, just want to highlight this. It's actually a simple, child-friendly resource about pregnancy and prenatal development. So there are great resources out there that cover these things. Of course, we've got resources too from the American College of Pediatricians. So just go to the show block at lifeispurpose.com. You will see the list of links, but we want to equip you. Come on, This is part of the full armor of God is the knowledge, is the ability to be able to cut through the clutter and the noise with the resounding sound of truth.
Take heart, warriors. Take heart. We're going to win this war. There might be battles that it feels like we're losing, but we're going to win this war together through prayer, through doing hard things, and staying on task. So I just encourage you, and I'm just sending you a hug from miles away. And we're not just cheering, we're actually fighting alongside of you.
Right.
We're in this together.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. There's definitely a war on kids, but we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to expect the victory.
The victory, yes.
Whatever may come your way, no matter what people say, your life has purpose. Sometimes it's hard to see that you have a destiny. Your life has purpose.
Hey, we'd love to know what you think of the podcast. Go to lifehasPurpose.com and give us your feedback.
You can also listen and download our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or SoundCloud.
Remember, whatever may come your way,
And no matter what people say,
your life has purpose.